All right. What is up, everybody? And happy Tuesday. So we've got Erica in the chat. What is up? VV Cryptos. How's it going? Today, so I know we didn't do a builder stream last week. So today we will do a refresher. And then we'll also get into deploying via the SDK. So this will be kind of like an introduction to getting set up for the SDK, which is the System Development Toolkit. What is up, 9A, 7A? I see you in the chat too. But first off, I just want to go over the Decentraland contest number 3. So it is the Lost Fountain, and I have heard some people in the chat. It's been a little bit more difficult than some people might have anticipated. So I do want to also have kind of an AMA session today, where if you're having any issues with your fountain design, you can ask, and we can kind of try to work through that. But basically the concept is you're out and about exploring and there's nobody around. It's in a completely dense uninhabited forest, and you come across a fountain, and something about it is just drawing you closer, telling you to drink from it. So what is that fountain? What does that fountain look like? And what are the fountain's mystical powers? And I know that it says a 4-second animation is required, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to animate like fluids, right? So if that's something that people are getting caught up on, you don't need to animate water or some sort of liquid coming out of the fountain necessarily. You could say, for example, animate an aura that's rotating around the fountain, or something like that. The contest is open till the end of this Friday, and we only have one bid so far. So at least 4 other people are guaranteed to get money from this prize pool. But I know a lot of submissions come in on Thursday and Friday. So if anybody is having issues developing their fountain or creating an account, just let me know and we will get it sorted out. Yeah, Slaterade says sounds like everyone has a decent chance. I know as of right now, one person is walking away with $2,500. But yeah, so that is VV Cryptos is working on it. Good, very good. So yeah, that is going over the DCL contest number 3. What's up, Vizu? Now let's go back over to Decentraland, or I guess go to Decentraland, because although this won't be a requirement for this build competition, meaning build competition number 3, one of the requirements that we are going to have coming up is actually deploying this in Decentraland. Everybody has been really good with the try counts and the scene limitations thus far. So there were a couple where I had to check the try counts, but they were good. It was all good. So the next step, now that everybody is building and modeling, is actually to get these things deployed to Decentraland. So if we head over to the builder here, and I believe we covered the builder in the very first stream video that we did, but this is where you can import anything that you're developing in Blender. So over here on the right, you can click the plus button and you can add in a new scene. Up to this point, the scene limitations or the build limitations for every single competition has been, fit within a 1x1 scene limitation. That might change. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But as of right now, that is what the limitations have been. And now, when you're working in the builder, this is basically your test scene, right? If you want, there's nothing in here right now, but when you click preview on your scene, it will show you what it's going to look like in Decentraland. And this looks very similar to what the test environment will look like via the SDK. But for some people who either don't want to work in the SDK, or maybe it's a little bit out of their realm of expertise right now, this right here would kind of satisfy, being deployed to Decentraland, just for future reference for other contests. So if you build something and you go ahead and you bring it in to Decentraland, I don't know what I want to bring in here. I don't know. I'll just drop in a person. And then you go to the preview mode, this would constitute a deployment to Decentraland. And basically it just proves that, yes, it can be deployed in the scene limitations. So that is the builder. And now we're going to get into the SDK, or the System Development Toolkit. So going back to Decentraland, on the top, there is a docs section. And I'm going to shoot this link over to Slaterade right now to post for everybody. But this documentation is really, really, really well done to get people set up with the SDK. So if you want to follow along, there are going to be some things you have to download. You can see right off the bat, you're going to have to install node.js. And then you will, while we will launch the test environment through the command prompt, if you want to actually get in and start editing code, which we're not going to do today, but that'll probably be in next week's stream, you'll also want to have something like Visual Studio Code installed, just so that it's easier to manage your code and manage your assets. But over here under the SDK 101 section, under the documents for Decentraland, you will see the very first thing to do is to install the node.js. So we'll just click on this. And I already have my node.js installed. Where is it? Node.js right here in the command prompt. So depending on what you're using, I have a Windows. And so I just downloaded the 16.17. Latest features for downloads sometimes come with bugs or some issues. And so I just always go with the recommended one. And although I already have it installed, if you were to click on it and install it, there are going to be a couple of different prompts throughout, but you'll just go with like the recommended options in the setup wizard. So once you have the node.js installed, the next thing that you're going to want to do is install the CLI for Decentraland. And the CLI is the command line interface. And basically installing this CLI will give you all of the packages and infrastructure and everything that you need to work in a Decentraland test environment and to deploy things to Decentraland. So what I really like about how they have this set up is that they walk you through how to do various things, and you have the code right here that you can just copy. So I hope I'm not going too fast. Luckily, this is recorded, so everybody can watch it back. But once it's installed, node.js, you're going to want to open your node.js command prompt. So if you don't see, like if you don't already have it pinned or anything like that, you can just go to your search bar, type in node.js, and you don't want to open this app here. You actually want to run the node.js command prompt, and it's going to pull up basically just this black screen. And what we're going to do is we are going to copy the code here to install the CLI. And I already have it installed, so I'm really hoping this doesn't break anything for me. But we're just going to paste it here and click enter. And then you can see this is being installed globally, which basically means that this is going to be, Brocktholomew. One, I love the name Brocktholomew. And two, thank you. I'm going to try not to mess any of this information up as I go. but you can see that it just went through and it downloaded. I might be getting a warning here because I already have it installed. The fact that it says deprecated doesn't matter, but these are being installed globally to your computer. And that basically means that you can now access this stuff from any of your folders or your files. So you'll want to set up a new folder, and I'll show you that as well. But basically, that's all you need to do. And now we've got our CLI installed. So the next thing you want to do right here to create your first scene or your test scene is, like I mentioned, you're going to want to create a new folder. So under my desktop, let me hide this. Under my desktop, you can see I have added something called, did I not add it already? Okay, oh, there it is, SDK test deployment. Probably should have made that a simpler name just because of the command lines. But I've added a new folder, and this is where we are going to create our first scene. So we need to copy this code, and then we actually need to navigate to that folder. So you can see right now I'm just under DCL.cu. I don't know why it says CU there, but we are going to CD, which basically means change directory. And then you can either navigate there manually. So for example, I could navigate to desktop, and then I could navigate to SDK underscore test underscore deployment. And that will take me to this brand new folder that we have just created. Another way that you could do it is CD, and then you can actually just drag that file over to your command prompt so that it'll just navigate directly there. But just as habit, I typically do CD. And now that we have navigated to that proper folder, again, we are going to copy DCL init. And this is going to, I guess, initialize the scene and show you kind of just the test deployment that Decentraland has there. So we are going to paste that in, and we are going to click enter. We are going to click on choose a project type, use arrow keys. We are going to click on scene. We are going to do the scene cube spawner. And there I was just clicking enter both times. And now it is installing everything that I need to get set up. So you can see here, I had nothing in my SDK test deployment folder, but I just ran the DCL init, and it just populated my folder with all of the things that I'm going to need to interact with the code in Decentraland. And like I mentioned before, we're not going to get into actually coding right now. The point of this is just to show how you can get set up to do deployments in Decentraland, which if you have your 3D model, you don't really need to code too much. You'll just basically be bringing the model into one of these folders and referencing that for a deployment. But if you do want to get involved in the code, the SRC file is where you are going to access that. And this is also where the Visual Studio is going to come into play. So I'm just going to show this as an example, but opening it with Visual Studio Code, and you can see that it has come pre-populated with what is going to be on that scene there. So we should see a cube that pops up in our test scene. So I'm going to minimize this, and going back here, all you will have to do is type in DCL start. So we'll go back, and in our command line prompt, we will click DCL start, or paste DCL start, and then we will click enter. And this is going to actually open up a new tab in my browser. And this tab in the browser is going to look very similar to what we just saw in the builder. But basically what you've done now is you've given yourself more freedom and more capabilities, because you can edit code via the SDK, but obviously you can't edit code via the builder. So we'll let it load here for a second. Ooh, look at me. What am I rocking? I look like a sailor. Um, so yeah, your character always just ends up random. And it will spawn a 1x1 test environment here at essentially where Genesis Plaza is, 0, 0. And it's just set up so that you can click on this cube and then a bunch of other cubes get added in. And this is, one of those scenes that you can choose. So if we go back to the command prompt and scroll up, you'll see, again, it asked us to choose the project type and then choose a scene. So they have a couple of test scenes that are pre-programmed that you can play around with. But this is just, typically, I guess, the default one. Let me see, actually, because if we go to our Visual Studio Code and I, for example, take this cube, I believe I could just change this to a sphere, for example. Now, this might be where I mess up, because let me save this. Component return cube constant is the cube. And there my cube just went away. Maybe I put in the wrong code for sphere, but the most important thing to note here is that the reloads from your Visual Studio or whatever software you're using, whenever you edit that, it's live edits to Decentraland as well. So I'll go back here, and wherever I just changed it to sphere, I'm going to change this back to cube. Spawn cube. No, not spawn cube, just cube. There we go. Now cube should pop back up here. Yes, there we go. Oh, you have to save it. Forgot about that part. So if you just change this, again, I'll show that. So if I change this just to sphere and I don't save it, sphere and I don't save it, then it's not going to change anything. But as soon as I click save, the scene will update. So I'm, again, going to change this back, save, and we have got our magical cube back. And so with your files, you are going to essentially reference your model files in this SDK in order to deploy on scene. And unless you own land, it doesn't really matter where you deploy. So again, I'm on 0, right now, which is Genesis Plaza. So I obviously would not own this land. So if I wanted to deploy this to land that I own, then in the code, you also have to reference where it is being deployed to. So right now we just have it being deployed to 0, 0. But I would change that to where my land is, which is somewhere up here. And then I would be able to legitimately deploy something rather than just being in a test environment. So I know that was a decent amount of information there. Are there any questions about getting this set up, from installing the Node.js to launching it? Any questions like that? Because once you have gotten to this point and you've got everything installed properly, and you've actually gotten into your first test scene, that's kind of where we're going to start off, I think, next week. I'm just vibing to this music as I wait for some questions. It doesn't seem like there are any questions though, which is pretty good. Oh no, colliders pre-put in. So I just made a parkour course and I didn't even know it. Can I get over to that one? No, I can't. So, okay, that's how you get into the Decentraland SDK, and that's how you start messing around with it. Outside of that, I think we're going to go back to Blender now and go over some of the Blender features again, because I know that. 9A, 7A. Looking forward to getting a scene into Builder. Yes, can't wait. And as you saw, if I just go back here really quick, this scene basically looks like the test scene in the Builder. So if you want to get into the coding of everything, you can get into the SDK. But if not, for the upcoming competitions, you can just use the Builder for your deployment. So I'm going to exit out of this. Oh, I almost forgot. Terrible thing for me to forget. The awesome repository is something we had also previously gone over, but the awesome repository has a ton of different things from, just like simple things like doors to complex UV mapping to mini games and avatar swapping. And you can take all of these, you can download these, and then you can deploy these through the Decentraland SDK and play around with them. Can I drop that link? Yes, I can. There you go, Slaterade. That's for the awesome repository. And then Bartholomew, is Blender the primary application for building assets in Decentraland? Yes, it is. So you can build using the builder, and it comes with all of these, pre-installed, I guess, assets, like different floors that you can play around with, and trees, and I think there's a cyber city package as well, or a cyberpunk package, so you can put in things like moving cars. So this would actually gets animated left to right. And you can play around in the builder if you don't have Blender experience or 3D modeling experience. But if you're getting into complex designs and custom work, then the primary application for working in Decentraland is going to be Blender. So we'll start off here and just add in a come on. I'm not what I meant to do. Delete. Add in a cube. There we go. So if anybody is on and has questions about how to create a fountain or a specific issue that you're having while creating a fountain, this would definitely be the time to bring that up, I would say. And again, fountains can come in all different shapes and sizes. So like if we were to click S and then Z, so clicking on the object, clicking S, and then clicking on Z, we are scaling what could be the base of a rectangular fountain, for example. And again, for reference, just adding in a simple plane, clicking S to scale, and then 8 will show you what a 1 parcel scene size is. So then if you wanted to reference it for larger builds, I didn't mean to type in 43, but typing in 4 would scale that up more for a larger scene size. But here I'm kind of liking this. Let's change our view a little bit. That's better. And we'll put this right down on the bottom. And then let's see, if we wanted to, we could even add a decimate modifier in here on subdivide. I don't want to decimate that. Subdivision modifier. There we go. You get a kind of neat looking base there, I think. So you can take a square and you can change it into a circle if you want. I see 4K3 music. I have some cubes that are overlapping. Can faces overlap, or do they need to be fixed so no faces overlap? That's a good question. I guess it depends on how your faces are overlapping. Because, for example, if let's duplicate this, that's Shift D, and let me go ahead and turn on my screencast so that you can see it. There we go. So if you were trying to make things like manually touch each other, it can get a little bit difficult, and you're going to see issues with clipping in Decentraland. So if I were to just try to, manually connect these, you might find that there's either space in between them, or that you have some faces overlapping. And if you have the faces overlapping, then when it renders in Decentraland, it will clip. So it basically just looks really grainy, like there's overlapping materials. But there is the magnet button up top in the center, and the magnet button can be used to help attach faces without overlapping them. So we can click on the face, center, and then we can move this along, and you can see how it basically like grabs to this other box. And now we have magnetized these together so that there would be no clipping issue, but there's a seamless connection between the two blocks. So for 4K3 music, I hope that answered your question. In general, you should not have overlapping faces. And then I see, yes, VV Cryptos. I don't know how to export with animation to the builder. You don't know how to export with animation to the builder. Okay, so let's see if I can do this on the fly right here. Let's get rid of those. I don't know. I'll rotate this on the y-axis 90 degrees, and then pull this up. We'll do the location, rotation, and scale. So we're inserting the first keyframe, and then we'll go, I don't know, 30 frames. And we will do this again. Oops, actually, we're going to want to rotate this. So I'll rotate this 180 degrees. And then we'll click I, location, rotation, and scale. And now we should, ooh, that's kind of a, I didn't mean to do that, but that looks pretty neato, if I do say so myself. And then we can do the same thing. I'll actually put it at 59, and we'll end this at 59. And then I'll insert a last keyframe. So that's I, location, rotation. Oops. We want to rotate this again. So I'll rotate it another 179 degrees. And then we'll insert the keyframe. So now we should have a looped rotation. Looks kind of funky. But it is an animation nonetheless. So I'm going to save this to my desktop. We're just going to call this test animation. I'm looking through. I think I see another question. How complex can DCL assets be? 2B accessories, 500 tries large. So that Mr. J designs, I believe some of those, yeah, those things that you just posted, those try counts, those are for wearable designs. If you go over to, oops, don't want that. If you go over to the Decentraland documents, there's a scene limitations section, and this shows you what the limitations for the individual scenes are. So this is showing it for a 1x1 scene limitation, but I believe this reference table, yes, it does. So this reference table will show you all of the different limitations depending on the number of parcels that you have. Those parcels do have to be connected. So connected parcels create an estate, and the more parcels you have in a state, the more or higher you can build. So that's another good resource. I'll put this link in here as well, because sometimes the Decentraland doc, oh, well, look at that. Look at you go, Slaterate, already getting after it without me needing to put it in. Sometimes it can be difficult to navigate the Decentraland docs and find exactly what you want, though. But yes, those are the scene limitations. So going back to Blender, we now have just a simple animation. And we are going to export this file, export. as a, I think I might end up messing this up. We'll do it to the desktop, export it as a GLB file. And then if I go back here and we go into the builder, we'll just get rid of all of this stuff. Then we'll go back to our asset packs. We will click upload an asset pack, and then I will grab what I had just created, which is this test animation here. Can I got too many files. That's my issue. There we go. Import asset. Continue. Import asset. If we scroll down to the very bottom, we should see it. Well, that didn't come out how I wanted it. Oh, okay. So I don't know if anybody knows exactly the issue that I have right now, but you can see that it imported as a square and not as that sphere tile. And that is because I just exported this without applying my subdivision modifier. So while it looks like this in Blender, since I did not apply this, it did not register in the export. But we do have the animation still going here. So I'm going to try this one more time. We'll export it as a GL. For some reason, I definitely do think that I need to zip it within animation. But we're going to try this one more time. Test animation 2. There we go. Now we've got the nice little base looking thing. Bring that in. And we will drag it up a bit. Now this is, there we go. So you'll notice when you are just in this view, I forget who asked the question. Was it VV Cryptos? When you're in this builder view, and you can see it with where's the, was it sci-fi? Cyberpunk. Under the Cyberpunk one. So anything in the builder that has this lightning bolt is a smart item. And so even with this, you can see it's got these red arrows, but it's not moving. And if we go into the preview, we will see that the car is now moving as well. So to bring animations into the builder, it's very simple. Animate it in Blender, and then when you put it in, you just have to access the preview mode. So if you were going to deploy via the, well, I guess you wouldn't be deploying, but if you were going to record your submission through the builder versus through the SDK, you'll want to make sure that you are in the preview mode, and then it'll come through. And I don't know why, but I actually I kind of like this little wonky kind of animation thing that's got going on here. I feel like it's dancing. Would be a heck of a fountain, a dancing fountain. So yes, I hope that answered your question there. Yes, maybe I export my asset with others' properties. Yes, you are welcome. Are there any other questions on that before we go on? I know I just briefly touched on the animations as well, but what I was referencing, I think at the very beginning of this call, was that for a fountain, we had talked about fluid animations in a chat a while ago, but fluid, like the physics of fluids in Blender don't necessarily apply to Decentraland. So animating something like water or a fluid in a fountain for Decentraland might be a little bit difficult. But if we just, actually, I'm just going to delete this at that point because I don't want to have to unrotate it again. And I didn't want a plane, I wanted a cube. oops, added a cube, size, z-axis, making our base or our platform. And then what do I want to do here? I'll probably add a cylinder here just for like a small base to set something on. So I'd import a cylinder, probably size that down a bit, but make it taller on the z-axis. We want to turn off the magnet. The magnet can be a pain. And again, for in reference to the overlapping faces, like here, for example, these faces are definitely overlapping, but if I wanted to, this could be a good spot for me to use a Boolean modifier again. So taking the Boolean modifier and applying it to this object here. And now this will fit perfectly inside of this base that I've built without needing to worry about the face overlapping or the magnets and connections. And so maybe I want to create like a bowl here. One shortcut that I don't know if I've gone over before, but up top, how you can switch between the vertices, the lines, and the faces. You can also do shortcut is just 1, 2, 3 on your keyboard. So you can see I'm shifting through those different things, but we want to be on 3 because we want to be on the face. And I'll probably extrude this a little bit here because I don't want to mess with the entire base. And then I'll size this out to get a kind of base of the fountain. I might drag that up a little bit. It's starting to look a little bit more like a fountain, isn't it? I think it is. Now we could escape, and that might be the first base. So I'm actually going to mess this up, but I will want to separate these right now. So I'm going to separate my selection, which is going to be my base. And then I'll actually go ahead, get out of edit mode, and I'll duplicate this, bringing it up, and I'll shrink it down a little bit for kind of the next level. And again, we can use a Boolean modifier here so that there's no clipping issues between the two items. So applying that, and that didn't modify it. Let's try this one more time. I might know why. Boolean. No, that's not what I want. 1 second. This is base 1, but it won't let me apply a Boolean modifier to it, and I'm thinking it might be because it has open faces. So we can actually, we'll go to the line mode, and if you hold control on your keyboard while you're clicking different lines, it'll kind of fill everything that's in between. But we don't want that line. We want this line. No, it's the worst. Just go around the edges here, and then I'll click F. F is fill on the keyboard. I'll tab out of that. I'll tab here, and I'm actually going to hide these really quick. So if you click H on your keyboard, you can hide. And then if you click Alt H, it will unhide anything that you have. And this is good because while you can hide items over here as well, you can't hide portions of an object unless you've separated that material. So if I just wanted to hide this entire cylinder, I can, but if I want to hide just this face, which is what I want to do right now, then I will just hit H there and hide it in the edit mode. Actually, you know what? I am going to hide it here because I want to work on the bottom. And we'll tab into this, and again we'll go around in the line select mode, and I'm just going to select these different bottom edges, lines, edges. Sometimes this gets meticulous, and then clicking F, we will fill that. And I'm going to hit Alt H to unhide the base of this fountain. And now I'm hoping that was the issue with the Boolean modifier. It looks like it's taking to the base 1 now, which is good. Very, very peculiar. So I don't know why that's happening, but we'll figure that out later. We can figure that out later. Maybe I'll just do it like this, and then I can take this base. I can duplicate this as well and bring it up. I'm actually going to delete this item here because we don't want that. And then you can see my object orientation is currently off skelter, off center. So I'm going to click A. Is that why? Are these? Yeah. Okay. So we'll click A. Oops. We'll just click on this object in object mode. We'll click on object up here and set origin. We'll set the origin to the geometry. And then I'm going to shrink this down a bit. And I'm just going to drag it and pop it back down here. How does that look? It looks pretty good. I'm not going to lie. And then I could simply repeat this process, bringing it up, shrinking it down a little bit, and voila, we have basically the beginnings of a fountain here. And you could apply textures. So what I'll try to do here is we'll actually open up our side piece, and we will bevel this in just a little bit like that, and we'll go down here, and I'm gonna make it look, kind of like there's a, what would you call it, a basin? I don't know, but I'm gonna drop it down a little bit so that it's got some slope to it, and it actually looks like there might be an edge. So I can select the edges now, and again, holding control, I can just kind of select around these different edges. Oops, there we go. Now, if I wanted, I could say extrude these up just a titch. And then I don't have a water image with me right now. But if you had some sort of water image, you can then go in, assign your new material. And so I'll just use a blue color for now. Oops, I forgot to separate these. So I'll probably name this the fluid, because this fluid, oops, didn't mean for caps lock to be on, but this fluid would then be applied to basically all of these other portions here. And I can now add a new material, base color, and we'll, oh, did I do the wrong one? I did the wrong one. Shoot. Remove, unable to remove. Why? Because I was in edit mode. I think it's this one. Is it this one? Definitely, I feel like it should be this fluid one, but it's looking like it's the other one. All right, we'll add a material here. This is why naming is so important. Oh, that's a cylinder. It's a cylinder. Oh, it was fluid. I was just messing it up on my own. So maybe we'll make this like, I don't know, grayish, so it looks like a fountain of sorts, kind of like a cement there. And now you've got kind of what looks like a fountain. And going back to the fluid animations and the fact that fluid is very difficult to translate over into Decentraland, something that you could do to have animations with a fountain, a mystical, magical fountain that wouldn't require like a running water or a running fluid, could just be to add basically auras, right? So we can add in like an isotope, which I think looks kind of cool, and shrink this down. Maybe we will make this, maybe we'll make it like, I don't know, kind of blue as well. And I'm going to make this emissive. So emission, again, is how you get the light into Decentraland. And we can have a bunch of these all around. I think I saw somebody was working on something pretty cool with like a field that had a bunch of sparkles all around, which was really cool. And there's different ways that you can animate this to make it look like, oops, did not mean to bring that so far out, but to make it look kind of more mystical. So here I'm just duplicating a bunch of these right now, and we'll drag them around. And I'm wondering, actually, I haven't animated with grouped objects yet, but if I were to join these and then rotate it 90 degrees, is that what I'm looking for? Not really. Let's undo that. Let's rearrange this a little bit. And I think this is the recommendation that I gave to the other individual. But if you want to make it look like there are these animations, let's rotate this, say 30 degrees. And what we'll do is we'll animate this to go down and up, and then we'll animate the other one to go up and down, and it'll look like there's things kind of, you know, shimmering and floating, versus having to individually animate every single piece of your aura or surroundings. So once we pull this up, the keying dimension, which is just at the bottom here, again, we'll click I, and we're going to set the initial location of these auras. And then we'll just grab it. Actually, let's move over to, I guess, 20. We'll do 30. We'll make this simple. So I'll grab it. I'll just move it down a little bit. I'm clicking I to set that new frame, and then I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it up a little bit. I'm going to grab it and move it up. And make sure you always have to change your keying before you move it. And I will set that again. And now we should have these balls that are floating up and down. And if I take this other object now, I'll do the reverse. So I'll set its initial location. I'll move over to 30. We'll grab it and we'll move it up. I'm going to hit I to key it in, and then we will move here, and I will move this down and hit I and key it in. And now we've got these kind of two varying fields. I don't really like the speed that it's running at right now, so I would probably slow this down. This is much too fast, but you can see how using simple grouped animations and groups of objects, you can create kind of these aura effects. And these are very popular, although they don't have animations with them in the wearables. Kind of aura effects are very popular in Decentraland as wearables themselves. Bartholomew, I see you're headed out. You are welcome for the great information. Money Morrison, make a roller coaster in Decentraland. Can you? Like a Six Flags in DCL. That's interesting. Yes, you can. And let me see. Let me pause this animation before it makes me dizzy. But if I go over to the awesome repository, I think that there are some examples, and maybe not of exactly a roller coaster per se, but I do believe there are some scene examples in here that could be leveraged to develop a roller coaster. Let's see what we got. Anything roller coaster-esque. Drive a car through piles of blocks. So here's kind of something you could use. And actually, am I in Decentraland right now? Let me hop out of the preview. How much time do we have left? We have 7 minutes left. I'm hoping this scene is still in Decentraland. And you would, yeah, like 9A 7A just mentioned, it would be an animation following a path. So you could create something like a car or like a roller coaster, and you would make sure that it has colliders inside and outside, right? So basically somebody would be able to hop inside of it and it would move along with that object because of the colliders. And if this location is still here, I'll show you one of the examples of a game that had done that before, and it would be located right here, but it looks, oh no, here it is. It's the jungle game, Coco Jones and the Temple of Eternal Bananas. And so they've got a car in here, and you click on it to make it move. Ah, don't leave without me, buddy. There we go. And you can see this is basically a card that has been developed, and it's on a path. I forget how to shoot. You're supposed to be able to like throw balls here of some sort, but I don't remember the actual controls to do that. But essentially, this is how you would go about making a roller coaster. So you would animate the actual cart itself, and then people would be able to hop on the cart. You click on the things. I don't know. I'm clicking, and it's not letting me throw anything. This might be a little bit of a broken game. This game came out, I think, 2-3 years ago. This was one of the very first games in Decentraland. So the car was moving kind of slow. You can see the graphics here aren't all that great, but Decentraland and what you're capable of doing in Decentraland has come a long way since this game has been developed. But this was is still, you know, an awesome reference model, and I believe this is one of the ones that might be accessible in the awesome repository as well. So I hope that answers your question in terms of being able to create a roller coaster. Does that fountain create two separate animations for the two groups of balls when you export? Yes, Yuri 206. I believe so, because if I go back to my my Blender and I open up my dope sheet, dope sheet. Where'd my animations go? No. Oh, there's my animations. There's one set, and then here's two sets. So I do have two sets of animations here. And we can test this out really quick with the 4 minutes that are left. Let's see if this does easily export the two animations. So I'll call this test 3. We'll export this. Go back into the Decentraland builder. Let's get rid of these two items. Go back, we'll add in an asset pack. Test animation 3. We'll put this on in here. I actually kind of like the fountain I just created. It's not all that mystical yet, but I feel like it's the start of something great. Where did that just go? That's not it. Continue, create asset pack. Maybe I have too many asset packs in here. Let's delete one of these. Edit, delete asset pack, and now we'll add a new one in. Okay, very interesting. I don't know why that's coming in like that. Let me try to refresh this. Too many triangles? Let's check my try count, actually. It's going to be up here under geometry. Oops. Nope. Under viewport overlays, the statistics. My try count is only at 2,000, so I should be well within the range, and we're definitely not exceeding a 1-by-1 deployment. So that is raising some questions for me, I would say. We'll just create a 2x2 really quick. Let me try one more time. I'm wondering if it has something to do with the dual animations I did put in. If that is the case, I think that's kind of odd. And it's just not showing up here. Okay, let me try one more thing before the stream ends. I'm going to delete one set of these balls. I'm going to save this. I'm going to export this again. GLTF, and I'll export it as test animation 4. And we'll see if that changes anything. Still not going in. Okay, so this might be an issue with the DCL builder right now, because I don't see any reason why it wouldn't accept that file, because, you know, again, if we go in here, we're having no issues whatsoever with the animations. So I'll actually note that down. I'll look into that and see if there's some issue with importing multiple animations in one GLB file. Animations into builder. Okay, I made a note of that, so I will do some digging. I was really hoping that would work, but does that sound? I'm looking through. Oh, Yuri says, so if you put it in the builder, it will just play 1, I think. So it might. So even though I deleted those objects from the blender, maybe the animations, the 2 sets of animations were still in there. So that could have been an issue. One way that I could have gone around that issue would have been to take these assets and make them a separate object. So I could have created a separate Blender file with the fountain in one of them, and I could import the fountain, and then I could take these balls that have been animated and I could put those in separately into the Decentraland builder, and that would be kind of a roundabout way to get your animations in there as well without having it all in one single file. So that is it for us today. Again, this fountain challenge closes on Friday. I think you guys will really like the next competition after this one closes. We will be going on a lost theme here. So this is the Lost Fountain. And we are just getting started with the Lost series. That'll probably last a couple of competitions, maybe 2 or 3 more. It's going to kind of keep progressing and building on this Lost theme. So today we went over the DCL builder again and deployments. We went over installing the node.js and getting set up with everything you need from a code perspective to deploy into a Decentraland test environment. We showed the SRC files that come with that installation and being able to access that SRC file through the Visual Studio Code. We looked at the awesome repository again, which you can download items from. You can check out the code that they have. You can test those deployments via the SDK, and you can play around with the code live. And then we came back into Blender to showcase a simple fountain design and go over the animations, since that is a requirement for the submissions. So thank you everybody for joining today, and I hope to see you next week, and I can't wait to see your submissions. So have a great rest of your week.